Hey folks, really excited to share this with you guys. So I've made a handful of videos on the market internals, and at least I know for me, I've been trading them using all the charts and the layout that you've seen that I've shared with you on Thinkorswim. And one thing that I know from YouTube channels, trading resources, books, that the least amount of work you have to do before you enter a trade, the better. Just the cleaner, the less decision fatigue you have. And obviously 6-7 charts at once, trying to track all the movements and set up a plan in the heat of the moment. You know, I like to trade on the 2-5 minute time frame. It can be a lot. I definitely know that. I've spent most of my life as a software engineer, data analyst, coding for hours on end, and I even get to the point where it can be too much. What I've been on the search for is something that can simplify my process, give me that add and VOLD sentiment analysis at a quick glance. Are they trending? What is trend doing? Is it in balance? Is it out of balance? What is the tick doing? Is there anything I could build that would allow me to ease the analysis and make better decisions, or at least the same decisions, with much less work? I'm happy to share with you that I have come up with something that I find useful for my trading. It is on TradingView, and I've already published it. If you want to find it, and I will put links out there, it's called Market Internal Trend, or MIT. It's completely free, not charging anything for it. So I'm going to go through this. I actually have a couple of other ones that I've put together that accompany this. They're part of the buddy system of indicators. This one I'm just so excited about. This has simplified the process down to one thing that I need to look at before I place trades. I have a review video for this day, May 17th, 2023. So you can watch that one and compare it to this video on this announcement and see for yourself kind of the similarities. We'll jump right in. Just real quick, it does have some settings. You can change this to different markets. Right now it's the NYSE or the NYSE and the NASDAQ. I have not taken enough time to see if the NASDAQ TRIN values are correct inside of this. I have some algorithms that detect the balance and imbalance. I'm not sure these are right. It's been doing a pretty good job, but I'm not sure they're right. But it is there, so I'm going to keep working on it. I don't trade the Qs as much as I used to, not with the internals. I pretty much always have the nice internals turned on. I guess I would recommend leaving it on this, but please play around with it. You have a couple features here. So the middle histogram here, the red and the green, brightening and darkening, that is the representation of tick. So when we see high extremes, like I've demonstrated in the videos, when you see low extremes, those are the things I like to take note of. Those are the things that show importance with whatever it is I'm trading. You can see here, for example, we have some high extremes on tick. These are, you can see the value on the right hand side at over 1,000, 1,236. Look what happens with the price level here. As I showed you in the other video, I like to draw levels when tick hits extremes, right? So look, it's pretty close to the morning extreme. Okay, so this is kind of feature one. Just seeing this tick, these plus cross symbols indicate an extreme closure. So tick actually closed up here. It didn't just print a high or a low. And then we do have a trend line plot of the closes of tick. So we can see, is tick predominantly closing over zero or under zero? So that's really important to see, right? So in my review video for today, I made note of just how much closing, how much action of tick was all over zero. So it's very easy to see at a glance, like, oh yeah, tick is predominantly over zero today, not even just the highs and the lows, but the closes. So very important to see that. Very easy to see it, I believe. Then you also have two different bands up here. So I'm actually going to turn this little table off down here because it does kind of cover it up. So we've got two different bands here. So we've got a upper band and a green lower band. So the colors change. The top one represents the add. In my other setup, I've got the ad actually charted out. Here, it's just a band. VOLD is down here at the bottom. Same thing, just a band. So, you know, if you've looked at VOLD, it can get insane, right? 300 million, whatever. So it's definitely condensed. I do think there's a little bit of context lost, but I have tried my best to bring that to the forefront as best as possible. So the darker it is, the less strong. The brighter it is, the stronger it is, right? So ideally, you want to see the ad and the VOLD bands, you know, in favor of whatever bias you're seeing in the price, in the tick, right? So if tick is bullish, TRIN is not balancing, which I'll get into that display here, and the bands are green, we're looking bullish, that's, you know, all systems go for longs. So then these triangles here. So the triangles over the bands, this indicates by default if the ad and the VOLD separately for each of the triangles are over or under their 20 SMA. So you've got the ability to adjust their trend. So you can do 50 SMA if you want. You know, whatever floats your boat there. I like the 20. So that's what I leave it at. So that's the two bands, that's tick. So these diamonds just indicate a high extreme or a low extreme. So they could print yesterday near the end of the day, we had some at the low. Today we had, you know, on the 17th of May, 2023, we had a ton up here at the highs. Ton of extreme closures, all these green crosses. Fantastic, right? Right as we're ripping. The way I use this is, one, I start drawing levels on the tick extremes. Let the structure build out, show me what's going on, what levels are important for the day. As things are reclaimed, retested, and bounced, ready to go, you know, I start using these diamonds and especially these green crosses as trims, you know, stop risk management, potentially exits, all the above. One of the last features is the TRIN, TRIN, the arms index. How do I display that? The main display are actually these dots here at the center. So if the dot is white, that means we're out of balance. Okay, so that means the trend is out of that middle zone, that 1.1 to 0.9 range. It's either bullish or it's bearish. If I try to get too fancy and say, hey, it's bearish because it's above 1.1, it's, you know, between 1.1 and 1.5, that could be misleading. So I wanted to just simplify the display and say it's out of balance. So it may be at highs, you know, at 1.5, and maybe it's coming down. So that's bullish, as I've said before in my other videos. If it's at 0.5 and it's getting ready to rocket up towards 1.5, yes, it's in the bullish zone, but it's moving up, so it's bearish. So I simplified it. So far, it's been working well for me. I may change this over time, maybe based on feedback or my own personal experiences. If it's a yellow dot, that means it's in balance. So it's in that middle zone, 1.1 to 0.9 area, somewhere in between there. Could potentially mean ad and VOLD aren't in agreement, and you should just maybe wait, right? Or reduce risk, however you want to manage that. If there are no dots, then it doesn't mean that there's not an imbalance. It just means that it's not predominantly bearish or predominantly bullish. So it's almost as good as white dots, but and better than yellow, but it's still kind of mixed bag, right? It's kind of a third party to the rest of the system. It is still what I consider my missing link. It really helps me stay out of chop. It's very important, but directionally, not as much. I really just care about, is it in or out of balance territory? The rest of it's usually up to the number. So that gets the last feature, which I'll turn that back on, is the metrics table. So when you have this on, it's on by default. You actually get to see each value of the internal. So you have TRIN here, right? So if I see white, I look down here and I see, okay, TRIN's at 1.5. So that could be bearish, but if I see that ad and VOLD are green, their triangles are green, price is going up, ticks high, that usually is like, okay, trends in the bearish zone, but it must be coming down, right? So if I go peek at the chart, Sure enough, it's going down. It's bullish. So that's why this is here. And this green will show you the trend direction. So if it's going above or below its 20 SMA, it will go green or red. So since TRIN is inversely correlated, it's green when it's moving down below its moving average, red when it's moving above. And then you've got puts and calls, and you also have ticker symbol VIX for the volatility. I did not find a way to really incorporate VIX, but as you know, if you've watched my other videos, personally, I mostly just look to see, are we getting ready to bounce major levels, right? So 16.5 or 17, 18.5, 19, whatever. And sometimes I'll just go peek at the charts. But in general sense, when I'm making trades, a lot of times I just need to see the tick. I need to see that VOLD and add or an agreement with whatever my analysis is. And I like to see that trend is not in the balance, these yellow dots. So that in a nutshell is MIT. The next indicator, and I'm still working on this one, but I have published it. It is called tick levels. And this one has been an absolute game changer for me, because what it does is it automatically plots those tick levels on the extremes. Every day it cycles all the old ones out. It does leave the diamonds and triangles if there are any. Triangles are the same thing as the crosses. I probably should sync those symbols up, but just know that's what it is. You can read the documentation on all this, by the way, right on TradingView for each indicator. So yeah, so here, each level from a tick extreme, if it's close in proximity to an existing one, it will not plot it by default. I have a tolerance that you can set, and it will group them together. If you've got the default option of level proximity thickener enabled, it will thicken the lines to give you more of a visual severity of these particular levels. So what I find is when tick is smashing at high extremes, and price is right around the same area it was in previous times, there's a lot of information in that. You can expect a bigger reaction. When you begin to trade this way, when you begin to watch these internals day trading, you'll see that as well. So that's why this is here. You can turn it off. You can set your own thickness. I don't know what the limit is, to be honest with you, but I think 2 is probably enough. And then you can also change the proximity. See here, if you set the proximity tolerance to a higher number, it's going to probably draw less levels when tick is incredibly chatty. Just tweak that to your desire. Just like MIT, you can adjust to the NYSE or NASDAQ. You can also adjust your signal thresholds just like you can on MIT. As I've said in my other videos, tick does adjust over time. The key levels aren't always the same, so you can make that adjustment in here. I actually like to have this around 600. I do like the 600s because it does end up bringing me more important levels that I like for more bounce and rejection type setups. So here I'm playing with it again. Maybe I'll turn the level thickener off. So this is one feature I'm looking at potentially adjusting. It can get too thick, so I think I need to add max thickness setting, but also perhaps have a different way of displaying that data, because as you can see, it does get a little insane. Every time you will get these tick level extremes, it will print a level, and like I said, it tries to reduce the total amount of levels based on proximity to other signals. And you can see these extreme closures here are a little bit different than the ones down here because I've set it to 600. But, it's still important, right? It starts to show you that sentiment of like, wow, okay, we're having a ton of action, ton of closes over 600. That's still that can still be considered quite bullish. Just because you can see a lot of times we don't really get over 500, which is what this area is. This is plus 500 minus 500. Just like the levels in my tick chart from my other videos that I show you. Very cool to see all of those, right? So if you're managing your trade, maybe you entered on the reclaim of this previous tick high extreme level. You see that we were able to save this level down here based on some low tick action. You can see we had a low tick. Look right here, we had a low tick, and look where it was, right around the same level on SPY as previous morning session when we ran a balance. We can see the tick trending, close trending above. Beautiful. All these closes pushing SPY up over high a day. And then look at this. Tick cools off. We see the close on tick starting to trend down, but never below zero. We blink balance a little bit as we're flatlining here on SPY. We're holding this tick level the whole time. And right around here, 12:30, we just start ripping, right? And we make all these new levels. We bounce on them a little bit. Boom, another push, another level. Boom, boom, boom. It just keeps going, right? One last one I have. This one I'm really excited about. Tick weighted average price. So this is a lot like the VWAP. If you're familiar with VWAP, what this does is it generates a weighted average price, and it does it based on the price of whatever you're charting, and it only includes the prices where tick extremes were met, right? So where is the entire market jerking this price around on whatever it is you're charting? So just like the VWAP, we've got standard deviation bands. You can turn all of them on. We've got the different markets that you can choose from. We have a sensitivity level, so 500 by default. This one, the higher the sensitivity, the higher the ticks need to be in order to include price in the average. So a little bit lower is okay here because it gives us a little bit of a smoother, truer to current price line. And again, the 500 breaks are important. Anything above or below zero, right? And anything above plus or minus 500 is important. So if we leave just the standard deviation 1 band on, the other setting I have is to color a TiWAP according to tick trend. If tick is trending up or down, you will see that represented in this line. So maybe you don't use tick levels. Maybe you don't even use MIT, right? Maybe you just close all that down. You want a simpler chart. That's fine. Maybe you want to go to tick levels. Maybe you want to turn off the lines. Maybe you don't need them. Great. You can still see the extreme closures. You can see the extreme highs and lows. And, with the tick-based weighted average price, maybe you can make all the judgments you need. So that's another indicator here. Just like VWAP, it does have the ability to anchor weekly, monthly, quarterly. Some really cool things. There's a strong resemblance to VWAP. It's quite fascinating because I make zero use of volume data in this indicator. So if I bring up VWAP, you can see here closely trending it the whole time. The bands for standard deviation are slightly lower and wider at some areas. So very fascinating. There was a different day earlier this week. Yeah. So here we had a dump, and we had a lot of nice cleaner rejections based off of TiWAP instead of VWAP. I think the TiWAP would have got you a lot more potential trade entries than VWAP because we're a little too far away. And, if you wanted to grab a more meaningful average based on tick extremes of a little bit higher value, 600 breaks, then, potentially you'd have a lot more meaningful alignment here with price. So versus VWAP, we're way above here. Sure, standard deviation band perhaps not as clean though, I don't think. But right here, we're getting very clean rejections each time off that TiWAP band, or TiWAP line rather. We're staying inside the bands here on this day. And then today here, right around 12:30, we have that breakout. And I'm really excited about these tools. They've been game changers for me. Hopefully they help somebody out. I hope that you take the time to add them in, maybe at least do some back testing with them and provide some feedback for me here on the YouTube channel, or you can comment directly on TradingView. Like I said, check the description. I'm going to add all the links to these 3 indicators. For me, it's a complete system. Gives me everything I need to trade the markets confidently with the internals based off of everything I've showed you. And I really only have to look at one chart. And the great thing is you can go pull this up for the Qs. Obviously, all this data down here stays the same because it's not based on whatever ticker you've got up, but all these levels here work. Let's see, we can pick, target's another one. So auto plots all the pertinent levels. You can pick anything. Go to Microsoft. So really clean, shows you how price is reacting to the markets in real time, dynamic support and resistance. You get really nice reclaim signals off the TiWAP, band breaks, right into some other key level areas where you can take action. Please review it. Please leave comments. As always, happy trading.